Life Matters with Dave and Nancy is on your radio. Lake 96.1. Named Best Morning Show by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association.
Just a quick reminder, Father's Day 1 week from today. It's amazing. Individuals forget Father's Day more than Mother's Day. Why do fathers have to get the short shaft?
Because mothers make sure you don't forget.
So be it. Quick question before we bring...
Listen, let me tell you something. When your kid goes to karate, one of the very first things that they learn is they have to learn like these rules, like these, I don't know how you would describe them, but one of the things one of them is if mom isn't happy, nobody's happy.
Oh. If it's Saturday, the day before Mother's Day, don't forget to get a card. That's not on the karate. If
mom's not happy, nobody is happy.
And then when do they learn wax on, wax off?
I don't know, Dave. They learn that probably on Father's Day.
Are there bonsai trees lining the mats?
Whatever.
I know. That was a cheap shot, but hey, Karate Kid's my generation. Wax not the Will Smith Kid version, Jackie Chan version. I'm talking about the Ralph Macchio, Pat Morita version. Judy Hehr joins us here on Life Matters.
Hey, Judy, you want to throw in some random topic that we can talk about? Because it appears as though that's what we're doing this morning.
We can talk about how my 16-year-old son just got his driver's license, and I said, congratulations, I am so excited to never be in the car with you. Ever.
I know.
Ever.
Seriously, my kids are 24 and 25. I have literally rode with them for a total of 30 minutes. I have never, no.
Did he go for his driver's test on his birthday?
No.
Is that still...
It takes weeks to get
the
appointment.
Yeah,
and that's the next question.
The craziest
is that more of an
thing in
urban
Wisconsin.
legend where on your 16th birthday you go for your driver's test? Because I didn't.
No.
And I don't remember.
No.
Did you pass on your first try, Nancy?
Oh, yeah.
Your first try,
Well, when I was in school, you took driver's ed in school. And so the driving I didn't have to go and take a driver. This is why this is crazy. Wisconsin should offer driver's ed classes and get that part. No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. I did.
Not in school, not anymore.
Absolutely. That's where I took it and Quantico High School. Sure.
Well, where my kids went to school, they couldn't take it. They couldn't, let me rephrase. Yes, they could take a driver's ed course, but the driving that they did in the driver's ed course did not qualify them in any way, shape, or form. See, in Indiana, if you pass...
Where you're from originally.
Yes. If you pass your driver's ed course, then you don't have to take a driving test with the DMV. So it eliminates all of that. All I had to do was go take my written test because I already passed my driving test with my driving instructor but apparently in Wisconsin, the driver's ed instructors in the schools don't want to be liable, or they don't want to do it, or Wisconsin won't allow them, or whatever. So every kid, you can take driver's ed all day long, but you still have to go take this and wait. Like, it was like 11 weeks I remember having to make my daughter's appointment 11 weeks ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, you time it out. The birthday doesn't change, so time it out.
Yeah, but that's insane. That's if you just would let the driver's ed teachers certify them from the school driving that they did, then they don't have to take a test, and you don't have to wait 11 weeks. You go in the DMV, you take your written test, boom, bam, you got your driver's license. What's the problem with that?
Is there an issue now? Are people not getting their license?
Yes, you have to wait forever.
Well, that's with anything with the DMV. See, they're breaking you in early. They're getting you used to the fact that you can't go to the DMV.
It's the most ridiculous system I've ever heard. But I'm right. I'm with you. I don't ride with my kids. I've never ridden with my kids. They can't drive. Are you kidding me?
Well, and my thing in my house is that I am the worst driver. So I am. I mean, I would not put other people's kids in the car with me. You know, I'm kind of a dumbass and don't really pay attention and don't obey many of the rules. I go 40 always, whether I'm in a 20 or in a 60.
Are you just not paying attention when you drive?
You know what I'm
are you a nervous driver?
It's like Mr. Magoo. Did you ever see him? He drives. It's like people are driving off the road and I'm just like oblivious. And so
and you've always been this way?
Always, yes. And as I was driving with my son the few times I did, and I was trying to correct him, like, always, when I would be in the driver's seat, he would be like, Mom, a blinker, a seat belt, rear view mirror. Like, he's always correcting me. And I was like, baby, I spent like half of my life looking in the past. And I just like to look forward. There's far better things lie ahead than you'll ever leave behind. And he said, but there's like a purpose of the rear view mirror. You know what I'm saying? And I think in life, it's always best to be, I mean, how much smarter would we have been had someone handed us a rear view mirror and we looked behind to say, okay. Right. Good indication of the future is like what happened in the past.
Right. Maybe we should make a left.
Yes. So somehow I can always equate and make an excuse for my
So you're
Poor
saying
driving.
Well, I am a bad driver. So
you
Is-
passed
now,
your
is he your
test on the
oldest?
first try.
I believe I passed. He is my oldest, and I've never been in an accident. So as bad as of a driver I may be, I mean, I'm someone who just got pulled over last year, and when I handed the guy my license, which was expired, my insurance card that I didn't have, he let me go, but then he said, "Is this your current address?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Is this your current name?" And I said, I never got it changed. So my son, who's now driving, says, "Mom, you got married like 17 years ago. I never changed it."
So if I looked at your driver's license picture, that would be basically your senior picture?
Yeah, it was a very lame picture, and I didn't have I don't know. It's like the little things in life,
You're an
really.
unlawful
So
person.
I am, and I realize that I don't mean to be. Like I want.
So now you have to go with your son though and get your.
So I did it all.
Okay.
I'm legal, but it wasn't an intentional or deliberate disobeying of the law because I'm all about the law and it's how it's for your safety. It's just like wasn't on my radar. Like someone
Right.
needs to tell me to do these things.
Can I be forward? And I've known Judy for all of 10 minutes in
hour,
my life.
yeah.
Can I be forward? Was it just being lazy? Was it just you didn't want to do
no,
it?
it wasn't even a conscious thing. It wasn't that, okay, my license is expired and rules don't apply to me, although I've lived the majority of my life that way.
Right.
I really do try to live in a way that my kids can say, okay, so rules do apply and there are consequences, whether I like them or not. I'm always forgiven, but this is the consequence. You do this, expect this as the consequence. So as I walk through my own consequences, I can say to my kids, see? Do you see what happens?
So what were the consequences for not getting the?
I got a ticket for my license. I got a ticket for that. And I had a really nice police officer who I still see. And I'm always like, it's me, the legal one. Yeah, we have this thing going, this guy in Walworth and me, this police officer. Yeah. So I'm just, I don't know. How do we get on the subject of my son's driver's license? Because I'm never driving with him.
Yes.
How do we talk about driving in general?
I don't know.
I think Nancy started
you know
it.
what you said, Dave? You said, is there anything else we can add to the 14 topics we just discussed? And I said,
yeah.
the highlight of my
That's
life right now is that my son is driving. And the other highlight would be that we're still negotiating this 6-page driving contract that he had to sign, no inside and out, and have in every vehicle that he may drive.
Wait, now this contract is just between your family and him, not
That
the
is
state
correct.
of Wisconsin.
That
Okay.
is correct.
Wow.
Although his friends really did make fun of him about it. Like he goes, "Mom, nobody does this, but nobody
great.
does what you do."
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful way to, again, explain very clearly.
Yeah.
What
you break the rules. Here's what happens.
You do this is what
Right.
happens. So he goes, "Mom, like this is like a no-brainer." And I said, "Buddy, when you got your boating license, it was a no-brainer that like you'd put gas in it. You wouldn't run it down to empty. Your friends wouldn't leave their food that they ate in it. That you wouldn't drive by your siblings at the beach when they were looking for a ride and just keep driving. That you might ask before you get in the boat. Like those were the same
Right,
no-brainers
right.
as the first license.
Are you
Right.
making him wear a life preserver when he goes out?
No, absolutely not.
In the car?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
I will wear they should be really wearing a life preserver when I'm in the car. And if you said to my kids, who is the worst driver you know, I'm telling you all 4 of them would raise their hand and say, my mother.
Yeah.
Is this your oldest child, the one that just got the license?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're just
So the younger
beginning.
kids are looking at the older child and going, okay, this is what I'm in for?
Exactly.
Or their older sibling?
And he's paving the way. You know, we're
The
trying.
oldest one always does.
We do.
Yeah.
That's right. We do.
So, anyway.
My parents didn't know enough about it, and they were letting me drive by myself with my learner's permit, and I knew
You weren't
damn well
supposed to
I
do
would.
that.
Yeah, I know.
Did you drive with friends? That was the other thing. When you had your learner's permit, you could
Yeah,
only
I
drive
picked my
with
friends
one
up from
person
school.
That's still the rule.
Oh yeah.
who had their
That's still the
license
rule.
for 5 years or whatever
Yes.
it is. So
Then my mom, when I went to get my regular license, my mom, I got home and she's like, I called the insurance agent and told him you had your license date. And did you know all that time you were supposed to have an adult in the car? I was like, nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. Of course, then my sister and brother didn't. Well, my sister didn't get away with much. And then my brother got away with everything because by the time they got to him, they were just so exhausted from me that they
It
were
is
like,
very
dude,
exhausting.
just-
Yes.
If you could just come home eventually, that'd be great. You got no
Yeah.
curfew.
Well, let me ask you both this. As parents of children, is it just, again, an urban legend or a myth that when you turn 16, you get a car? Because I always assumed that you got your license on the same day, and here's your 16th birthday present, you get a car.
No.
Is that just in the movies? Is that just on MTV Super Sweet 16?
Yes.
Did you get a car when you were 16? Does that still happen? Did it ever happen?
I did
didn't
not,
have
and I
parents.
certainly don't judge or condemn people that do. Our policy in our home is no.
Yeah.
It's something.
you have to buy it
Driving
yourself.
is a privilege in and of itself, and the rights of driving. You need to show me that you can handle this. This is a big responsibility. And that's what my son is doing, point by point, going through all of these things on this driving contract.
Is he negotiating this thing like to death?
Absolutely.
Is he going to be a lawyer?
Well,
That's good.
And I always say that, Dave, like he should be. And that's the thing. Like, I want my kid to be able to stand in front of you and tell you why. Like,
Right.
it's still my way.
Right.
Like, it's always my way. If mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Right.
But I want him to learn to articulate
facts.
your thoughts and,
Because
tell
you
me
know
why.
what? One day, I may look at you and say, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we can compromise on that
And
a little
that's
bit.
what we're
It's
doing.
still my way.
And that's the way he approaches it.
But-
What's is there a compromise? Like,
Right.
is it
Is
worth,
there room?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And he's all about pushing the envelope. And he does it well, and he knows when he can't. And that's what he said. He's, my curfew is 12, but this driving contract says 10:30. Okay, so now we're talking about that.
Right.
And he loves talking. Like, they love that. Like, so, Mom, we're still talking? And my husband will say, are we still talking? Like, well, I'm a public speaker. And they're like, no, you're just a talker.
That's all I
like,
do
you
is
just
talk.
talk. Yeah. Nobody wants to hear it.
But I think that would be good for the children, too, because nothing's worse than just having a parent say no because I said so. Yeah. Because then you want to rebel against that. If you hear a reason, even if they still disagree with it, at least they know that the parent isn't just, quote, being a parent. They have a reason for you wanting to be home at 10:30
And then when you
or
go out and
midnight
do
or
it
whatever.
anyway, you can go back and say, I told you that this is why I said no, and you did it anyway. And then it seems like, although I will say that I say because I said so a lot.
And then, and as a parent, that's all the reason you need to give sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But as a kid or a child or a young adult, 16 years old, it's sometimes nice to hear, hey, just have a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't play the parent card. Even though I know you're right and you have final say, I just want to know why you think the way you think. Whether I agree or disagree, that's all we're looking for sometimes.
Were you like, my curfew's midnight, but the driving contract says 10:30? Were you like, oh, we missed that, dang it.
You know
He's
what?
right.
This contract is 4 pages long, and it covers things that you never in a million years would have thought of. And when I showed it to my husband, a couple months ago, he said, I'm good with it if you just don't tell him it came from your Bible study teacher and like totally invalidate any good that's in there.
Right.
And that's exactly where I got it from.
Yeah.
And so our thing was that nothing good happens after midnight. First it was,
Right.
Can it be 12? And by the way, I want my curfew now that I'm 16 to be past 12.
No.
And so I called the Fontana Police Department, a couple months back, which again, my son said, Mom, like, nobody does that. Like, nobody does what you
care.
do. I'm like, baby, we're not everybody. Like, did I forget to tell you we're so not everybody? We don't do things like everybody.
Shockingly,
But
some people do.
I just want to know, like, what the law is.
Yeah.
So when they said you got to be home at 12, okay, well, then that would be with my vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
In my garage.
Because that's the other thing. Did he buy the car?
No.
Is he
has-
paying rent
yes,
on the car?
that's all part of it. He has to pay. He has to do something to compensate.
And not just gas, oil
Insurance.
changes.
And so then he goes, so if I get a ticket, do I have to tell you if I take care of it? And our deal at our house is little lies. They tend to become really big lies. And so let's just tell the truth. It's like so much easier
Right.
to remember what you did.
I got a speeding ticket. I used to work at McDonald's. I was a night manager. So after work, we close up shop at 11, clean up the store, leave at midnight, and then, hey, go over to a friend's house and watch a movie. And that's what I did. And I was coming home at maybe 2:30 in the morning, and I knew my dad was going to be PO'd if I came home this late. So I was cruising to get home. Got a ticket. This was a Saturday night. The whole next day, I was sweating bullets to tell my dad that I got a speeding ticket. I'm like, I'm dead. I'm dead. He will kill me. He will run me over. He will throw me in the lake, and then he'll pull me out of the lake and throw me in again just to make sure I'm dead. Because I was just afraid. And I told him, and he wasn't happy, but okay. Well, you don't have a car now except for work-related reasons. You can't use it for fun stuff, and you have to pay your ticket, and when your insurance goes up, or my insurance goes up, you have to make up the difference. I'm like, that's it? I mean, but still, that was
I'm alive.
a serious punishment. Exactly. I could graduate from high school now. Yay! You're listening to Life Matters, by the way, on Lake 96.1. Judy Hehr, mother, public speaker. She'll have a program very shortly here on this station.
Mm-hmm.
So Nancy and I wanted to give you the opportunity to get yourself acclimated with Judy.
Well, I talked at the beginning of the segment. I'm a little, or actually in the beginning of the last segment, I think, that I'm just upset with this country's general sense of I can do whatever I want and, damn those around me. And, but little things that you do, like that contract, makes kids today understand I don't have to give you my car. You didn't buy that car. You don't pay for anything for that car. You do not just get to stay out until, it's a privilege. Many things are a privilege.
Lots of people are feeling more and more entitled.
Yeah,
young
that's
and
the
old.
word Nancy and I used earlier. Entitled and presumptuous. 2 words I do not want to ever be described as, because I did before.
Can we expand on that thought in just a couple of minutes?
Yeah, sure.
The entitlement, I won't even say generation, because it's not just young people, teenagers. It's actually expanding to adults, young and old. There's a theory that it's just the young kids who are entitled. In a lot of ways, that theory is true, but more and more people.
Taught that by
That's
someone.
right. It was modeled, and continues to be.
Right.
We'll expand on that thought coming up in 2 minutes. Keep it here. You're listening to Life Matters on your radio, Lake 96.1.
Life Matters continues with Dave and Nancy on Lake 96.1.
And we're back here on Life Matters with Dave and Nancy. We've got Judy Hehr in here. Little guest appearance from Judy this morning. And so are your nerves, when's the next one get the driver's license, Judy? When is the next child? What's
The next one's 14, so I got some
you
time.
got not too much time, though. That
yeah.
flies by, yeah.
Well, like I
It's
said,
is it a
attempts in
girl?
a year and a half.
Yeah.
And is it a girl?
No,
Is
the next one's a boy.
too? Okay. See, it seems like boys would be easier. I don't know why.
Really?
Girls, really. My husband taught the girls. My husband taught all
drive
of our
you're
kids
talking
how to
about?
drive and all that. Yeah, I couldn't do it. And because they're so dramatic about everything. And he just sat back and relaxed. And, one of my kids made a left turn in front of a car one time. And, all he really said was, "You almost got me killed there, kid."
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the way my man does it too. Yep.
I gotta drive. Get out of the car. Pull over. You're done. I would have flipped out. So
both
that
of
would
your
have not
children,
been-
when they turned 16, did not get cars because they are not of the entitlement generation. They didn't
No.
feel they were owed a vehicle just for turning 16.
No, my oldest daughter used my car.
But they didn't get a car.
No,
They didn't ask for a car.
And then my youngest daughter has been working since she was 14 years old and had saved up the money and bought her own car before she had her driver's license. And it was sitting there waiting on her when she got her license. So I remember I have 2 completely different children.
One's adopted.
No, surprisingly, they're not. But she had to pay her fuel and her insurance and all that. But this was the honor student. This was the one that had the car, and all of that kind of stuff. So as she did things, some of her rewards became, okay, well, we're going to pay this semester's worth of car insurance for you because you did this and this and this. And so, she got to put that money in the bank instead of having to spend it. But, so there were just, but we taught her responsibility. And she wasn't entitled to it. She had to buy it. And she had to earn things. And both of them did. And it just seems to me like people, like we read last week, Scott Walker was, our governor was giving some kind of speech at a Special Olympics event.
It was on Wednesday. Some of the winners of the Special Olympics event were invited to Madison to see the Capitol and hang out with Bucky Badger. And one of the perks of being there was the governor was going to and did give a little 10-minute speech in front of them outside the Capitol.
Right. And there were, and while you absolutely have your right to free speech and First Amendment all over the place, obviously we're in the business that we're in because of the First Amendment and we choose to stay that way. However, those protesters, there were protesters that chose that 10-minute speech to purvey their message with zero respect and regard for these special needs individuals who were there to celebrate their accomplishments and the things that they've overcome. And it was, to me, when you do that, when you choose to completely ignore and think that you have a right to step on other people to push your message, no matter what it is, and you don't think of that big picture, to me, I won't listen to one word you say now.
There was about 20 Special Olympics kids. Governor Walker was on a podium talking to them, and apparently Michael Jackson Thriller, the zombie look. This is one of the avenues how protesters are choosing to protest the collective bargaining law And the recall, which will be taking place in July, what they did was they stood in front of the Special Olympics children with their back to Governor Walker. They didn't say anything, but they stood basically in the line of sight of these Special Olympians.
I mean, why are we like this these days? I am floored by that personally and embarrassed, for, I don't know, humanity in general, I guess, that we have gotten to this point. It's like, it's really uplifting to hear you holding your kid accountable with a 6-page contract with this driving thing. You understand that this is appropriate, this is inappropriate. I am proactive in teaching you respect for yourself, for the others on the road, for our rules, for our vehicle, for the efforts that we have put into making sure that it's safe for you and all that. That is huge to me. But really, where did we get so far off track on this? Why do people think it's okay to do this? Why do people think it's okay to protest at a soldier's funeral? Why is that okay? That is not okay. I don't care what your message is. It's not okay. I just don't get it.
You know what I think, Nance, in my own past experience, and as I said last week, that's all I have to offer. I mean, I'm not an expert at anything on except how to do things wrong. And in my own life, like the scripture that comes back to me is that, Jesus said you have eyes and you don't see, and you have ears and you don't hear. And, there was people in his time that were so passionate about what it is that they believed in was right. They believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that what they were doing was for the betterment of their people. And so do these protesters, and I'm all about, giving the benefit of the doubt and all about trying to understand the why. Because what people do is interesting. Why people do it. Fascinating.
That's
true. And I try to encourage my kids, you got to get to the why, baby, because that's you almost get to the point when you get to the why, which is a bonus, then you can say, no wonder. No wonder. And I've said it 100 times, you never underestimate never underestimate the power of desire, because no great things are accomplished without it. But at some point, to take away the dignity of another person at any step, the ends can't justify the means then. But I really don't think people think, you're asking how we got to this?
Yeah.
Well, because we do, because we see people modeling a sense of entitlement and presumption. I am so-and-so and rules don't apply. And we don't have to like the rules. I was just listening to a teaching on authority. We love authority. When we're in authority. We love that. We love when we're the parents.
I love all my rules.
Yeah, wives submit to your husbands. Children obey your parents. I love a police officer when he's driving in front of me and not behind me.
This is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
So it's that whole thing about having freedom and it being licensed. Licensed for what?
Well, and that's a very good point. So you have the freedom, but you also have choices. You have choices how to use that freedom and what's the most effective way to use that freedom. And I just can't, that is not the most effective way to use that freedom. That was, like I said, how many people completely tuned out what could have been an extremely, and what may be a hugely important message that has an impact on millions and millions and millions and millions of people. But because you chose to disrespect this event, these people, that platform was not where you needed to be. And again, you go back to the funeral thing. Really? You can disagree with the war all day long. But the fact of the matter is that the whole reason why you were able to go there and do that in the first place is because of that dead guy. Period. End of story. And so, even making laws that you have to be 100 feet away or whatever, that is insane. You should be arrested for trespassing or something. You should not be. But I'll tell you what, I just don't understand how people, to me, that changes, like I said earlier, to me, when you have such a complete and utter disregard for those around you, your purpose to me is now not a passion. It's an obsession, and that makes me nervous. People make me nervous that will do absolutely anything to get somewhere. That makes me nervous. I don't want my kids to be around that. I don't want to be around it myself because that makes me not trust you. I don't know what you'll do to make sure that you get what you want because you've shown this disrespect. And
And I'm convinced they don't think of it as that. I am convinced that if you offered a different perspective, and again, we go back and talk about this in my house all the time, there is another way.
Right.
Because everybody is doing this doesn't mean there isn't another option. I mean, everybody was getting divorced at some point. No judgment again about that. But someone came into my life and said, you know what? Here's another option.
Right.
Really? Well, that option worked for me and for us. Because everybody's protesting doesn't mean that you need to protest too with, and you know, the whole thing about everyone wants someone to follow. Like, we all need a leader. Okay, well, clearly these people are being led to do things this way. But I don't believe they rally first and say, okay, let's take away the dignity of all of these people who have sacrificed, whether it's for our freedoms or whether it's because of their disabilities. I don't think it's not even on the radar. I don't believe it is.
To expand a little bit more, we are a nation of laws, or a state of laws, or a community of laws, and you have to follow those laws. But I think part of the reason why these sorts of things are happening now is, never mind the laws on the books, society. There is the unwritten rules of society where you just don't do certain things.
Right.
Neighborhoods looked out for other neighbors. What would be a good example? If your kid was at your house with your kid, you made sure to make sure that that child was taken care of. You didn't just turn your back and let your kids run wild.
Different level of responsibility.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think as a society, we've gotten to a point now where we don't look down on certain aspects of behavior like we used to 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So
because that's now what they do.
Right.
Like, that's what we do now.
it's okay to take the spotlight off of, say what you will about Scott Walker. Agree with him, disagree with him.
Right.
In a sense,
Not
it's not
the
the
issue.
point.
Right.
He is there as the governor to give credit to 20 Special Olympians. Because you disagree with how he's handling the state budget has nothing to do with that specific situation. Now, if he's given a policy speech in lacrosse, if you want to protest, amen. But like Nancy said, there's a time and place to do certain things. And as a society, I think we enforce those unwritten rules more so 20 years ago than we are now.
We are far more. I mean, look at the crap that's on TV.
There's a new
Same
normal.
thing.
There's a new
Right.
normal for everything.
Right.
Because society would have, what was it, the 1960s? I Dream of Jeannie? Oh my
gosh,
God.
right.
You know what I'm talking about, Judy?
Yep, absolutely.
Where, you know, society, it wasn't the network, I don't even know what network it was on,
Look how skimpy.
where
Look at this, look at
society
that, right.
wouldn't approve of that, so the network wouldn't do it. And that was 40 years ago. Now, oh my God. Look at The Bachelor, for crying out loud. And that's on at
All
7
of them.
o'clock on a
what
Monday
is
night.
the Jersey thing?
Jersey Shore on MTV? Never
Whatever.
seen
Yeah.
It's
Read
not
about it, never saw it.
There's
An
an audience.
enormous amount of wasted television
But
space.
there is an
that
audience,
is.
and
There is an
television
audience.
is a business, and when there's eyeballs watching their show, no matter what it is, they will put that on TV. If society, what was that show, Skins on MTV with
I
the
have no idea.
15-year-olds? I never watched it, but it was causing drama because it was 15-year-olds getting it on. Well, society, what rose up against that and said, no, we don't want this on.
Right.
And MTV, which meant advertisers pulled their advertising on the show. And since MTV in this case wasn't making money, they pulled the show. As long as there's eyeballs watching a show, it will be there and it'll be making money.
Comes down to being an upstander versus a bystander. That was the theme of my son's 8th grade graduation last week. And the teacher called these kids as 8th graders, as the future leaders of our
Right.
country, our community, our church. They're just they're the future.
Right.
And she couldn't drive home the point enough. If there's nothing else you've taken away from this experience here, let it be to be upstanders and not bystanders. To stand up for the dignity of a human being. That's it. Like, really, you can make it about anything else. But if it starts with, I choose to leave you better than I found you as a
Right.
person. It has nothing to do with faith or God. It's just, I mean, other than
It's
that's
human decency.
That's exactly right. It's the dignity of a human being. And never mind the fact that we're supposed to see God in everybody. That's my own personal belief. But even if you don't do that, like,
Right.
let's go back to the golden rule. Let's treat people how we want to be treated. And again, I I think we just keep lowering the bar.
I do too.
And to me, I just said this last night to a friend of mine. I just feel like in so many ways we've given up. Like, well, this is what kids do. This is what adults do. No.
That's because you let them do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And my husband says, like, this is why we should start drinking again. Like, just to be able to just, like, if you can't beat them, join them.
Is it because it's easier? It's always easier to say yes than it is no.
Yeah.
Well,
and you're only as good as your last yes. I
right.
mean, you know, my kids have a very short memory, you know.
We moved into this house recently, and the people that were renting it from, the gal was telling me, you know, we had to paint every single wall. We had to do this. We had to do that when this guy before you moved out. And the reason why is because he had a little 4-year-old, and every single wall had crayon on it of the house. And so she asked him, she said, you know, because he said, well, am I going to bill for all of this? And she was like, yeah, because we couldn't just come in and put a normal coat of paint on. We had to put kills and do all this stuff because you can't just paint over crayon. And just paint over crayon and all this crap that was on the walls and stuff. And she says, why would you let her do this? Why did you, you know, how did all this crayon get? And he goes, well, she's 4. That's what they do.
No, that's what you allow them to do.
Like, let me tell you what I do to my 4-year-old that writes on crayon on the wall.
Yell, spank, lecture.
She doesn't get beaten, but she'll do it once.
I didn't say beaten.
You know,
Spanking and
I mean,
beating
it was
are
like
two
my
separate
kids.
things.
Yeah.
My kids, I always had to have them at a babysitter's. And so they could not be rambunctious and rowdy and all of this stuff. My kids were 2 years old, and you could take them in a china shop and not worry. They were not, you know what I mean? And that wasn't because, you know, they were spanked all the time or, you know, or all this. It was because you had to have respect for the place, you know, for the people that you're around, for the places that you're in, you know, all of that. You can't touch, that's not yours. You can't touch it. It's somebody else's. Have respect, ask questions, you know, ask permission, things like that. Because I couldn't have babysitters saying, oh my God, your kids are out of control. You need to find another. And so, but all of this behavior has been taught or allowed, or like you said, and the bar has just been lowered and lowered and lowered. And now really, you are completely disrespecting those people who have worked so hard for those achievements.
And think about the generations that watch that. Like, that's what they're seeing, and that's what they're being taught. It's okay to them, Nance, because here's the deal. We all have our opinions. We all do what we do, and our opinions are based on 2 things, our education and our experience.
Yeah.
And as people in this life, if we are not always allowing those things to evolve and change, and as we learn and we look in the rearview mirror to see, like, okay, what was I thinking?
Right.
Where was my head at? Why did I not see what clearly other people could look at and say, what are you thinking?
Right.
You know, it's so black and white to somebody else. But that's the problem, is if there isn't the bystander, or there isn't the upstander versus the bystander saying, hey, you know what, that's not right. Like, I will tell you, my kids know right from wrong.
Right.
I'm not telling you they do it.
Yeah,
I'm telling you that they have
Absolutely.
been educated and informed, not only about what's right and wrong, but what the potential consequences are, seen and unseen.
Right.
I don't have children, but do you want to raise mine?
Can I tell you, I'm the worst parent ever. I'm not.
I didn't ask you to drive him from A to B. I don't want you to be the chauffeur.
Okay, because I'm not a good driver. See?
I've been listening.
You know what? It all sounds great in theory. I mean, but really, Bob and I will say, like, what was God thinking when he gave us 4 kids? Like, clearly. But here's the deal. I would rather raise a healthy adult than, you know, raise a healthy kid than fix a broken adult. And my kids are being raised by 2 very broken people that have been restored and healed and all that. But a lot of times we're projecting that on them. And my kids will say, I'm not you. But really, baby, you are. Like, you came out of me. You're being raised by me. Like, you've got nothing going for you.
You're a mini me.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So no, I will not raise your kids. I can barely even raise my own.
I don't have any yet.
Okay, well,
so just, you know, put it on the old calendar.
I don't care for children.
Save the date.
Like, people who know me, anyone who follows me, and I say follow me in, you know, in not a prideful way, but who listens to me, will tell you that I will never take the daycare position. I do not like children. They don't listen to me.
Right.
And I want to be their friend. Your kids.
Right.
I don't care if my kids like me. I care if your kids like me.
Right. My
That's
kids
the way
would
it
love
should be.
you.
Yeah.
Right. But they hate me. But that's fine.
That's part of the job
I don't care.
description, Nancy.
I've never wanted
Being
to be
a mom
their friend.
and a father. Judy Hehr joins us on Late 96.1. When are we going to see you again? A couple weeks?
Yeah.
You know, speaking of this put on the spot thing, Dave, a lot of people have said to me, like, were you prepared for Dave? Because You asked me questions. They wanted to know 2 weeks ago when I was here if I knew the questions you were going to ask me.
No.
And people said, should we listen in? And I said, don't listen in because I sound like a dumbass. And they said, well, they'll find out soon enough you're a smartass. So at some point, I'm going to come in between and be the right fit here.
Well, birds of a feather flock together,
That's
I
what
guess.
they say.
We should just have her on every week.
You think?
It's working perfectly.
Why give her a
actually.
show?
I know.
That's what I'm thinking,
Can you just
Dave.
enhance
You know,
ours?
Charlie's Angels, they brought in new characters. You know, we've been on
That's
for a
what
while.
you need, Dave, is you need another chick in here.
Well, speaking
Right.
of, a lot of characters, like my kids would tell you that I have a lot of different personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show. Maybe that's what we'll talk about in a couple of weeks.
There
All
you
of our
go.
different personalities.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Thanks for coming in, Jody. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's my privilege.
More Life Matters next with Dave and Nancy, only on your radio. Lake 90.